Hi YouTubers, welcome to the channel. So today we're going to take on a job that I've kind of been dreading for a while actually, on the ML55, and it's replacing the steering rack. Now we have a leak on both sides of the rack, passenger and driver side. So I'm going to spend this weekend basically just hopefully swapping it out. We've got a replacement steering rack to go in. I was going to try and repair this one, but we've got a replacement one to go in, which I'll show you in a moment. Yeah, Mercedes seems to say this job's about 6 hours. I think it's probably going to take me most of the weekend. We'll see how we go. The first stage, though, is to get the car jacked up and the wheels off. So let's start. So this is the replacement rack we've got to go in. It's a reconditioned one from a company that have got good reviews. So hopefully we'll be quite well with that. So that's the rack to go in. And looking at the Mercedes documentation, or the whiz information, they actually go along the lines of wanting us to remove the diff. Yeah, they want us to go along the lines of removing the diff. I don't know. I'm mixed about that. I'm also seeing that there's another way of doing it by loosening the front subframe and lowering it a bit. But I'm also hearing that you don't have to do any of that if you just raise the diff a little bit and take off these pipes. This should allow you enough access to slide in and out. I don't know, but we'll see what happens when we get to that stage. For now, let's get the car up on jack stands and see where we go from there. Okay, so we've got the ML up on axle stands. This is the offending article. We'll need to undo the tie rod arms here, and then it's a matter of working out how on earth we get this out. Yeah, very interesting. There's the subframe, but I'm hearing you don't have to remove the subframe. Maybe move the diff up a little bit, but either way we may be able to slide this out. Time will tell. It's going to be a big job. As I say, I wasn't looking forward to it, but yeah, let's get on with it. So the next thing we need to do is drain the power steering fluid tank and then remove this, get it ready for the new one to be put in. We want to get as much fluid out as possible because obviously it's going to keep leaking underneath. But after we've done that, I then go back under here, remove this liner, and then we'll need to decouple the steering wheel from the steering rack. So let's get on with that. Steering angle, and it's just the steering rack bolt that I think we need to uncouple. So I guess let's get on with that. Right, got that off. So as you can see, the steering shaft is out, so we're now really at a position where we need to start unbolting the actual rack itself. So onwards we go. So I think what we'll do on the ML is disconnect the pipes first that are on this steering rack on the car. So that's these bolts here, these bolts here. We'll get those out the way because apparently they're the ones that obstruct us getting it out anyway. We'll then disconnect the pipes that are on the steering rack in the car as well that feed it. I think then we'll try and raise the differential slightly, and then it'll be a matter of seeing if we can get this out. So yeah, let's get on with that. Okay, really exciting moment. So the old steering rack is out, and I can confirm, if we go over here, the way to do it is to undo the 3 differential bolts and then pump it up with the jack. As you can see, it gives you just enough clearance to then get it out. So there's no removal of subframe, you don't remove the differential, you just undo those 3 bolts, you pump it up probably about 3 centimeters, gives you much more than enough room, and you can then wiggle out the old steering rack. So my life now is to get the other one back in. There's 3 differential bolts, the 2 front ones are easy. The one on the other side there has a nut on the other end, and it was a bit of a pain in the arse, to be honest, but we got it out. So yes, now I can begin putting the new one in. So this is a good, happy moment. So let's carry on. So we've got the steering rack ready to go back in, the new one to go back in the car. I've taken off the pipes to make it easier to get it back in, and then we'll put the pipes in place. The one thing that you do have to make sure is that you line it up dead center. So a full turn from left to right on this rack is 3.5, which means the center is 0.5 plus 1 plus 0.25 of a turn. So I now know this rack is in the center, which is important because when we marry it up with the steering wheel, we want to make sure so that we don't ruin the clock spring. So let's get this back in the car now. Okay, YouTubers, the new rack is in. Let you be under no illusion, this is an absolute pig of a job. Now we lowered the differential, which allowed us to get the old one out. Getting the new one in was kind of reverse of what we did. However, that side, so the passenger side, was an absolute nightmare to get in. This side with the shims went well, no problem at all. That side I had to actually grind down slightly the metal bush because it was so hard to get in. Anyway, all the pipes are all in place now. Everything's ready for me to connect the steering wheel back now. So we've got to go back up here and connect the steering wheel to that. Yeah, this is not a nice job, I have to say. So if you're considering doing it for your own ML, man, think twice. Okay, so we carry on. Let's do the steering wheel bit, and then we'll do the bleeding. Before I put the tie rod ends on and stuff, I'm going to check the steering, do fill up and a bleed, so that we know it's all working and there's no leaks, and then we'll finish off with doing the tie rods. Okay, steering rack back in. What a palaver, but it's back in. I guess we'll now fill it up with power steering fluid and go from there. Okay, so we're now ready to start putting the fluids in. So this is obviously the tank that we replaced. We're going to fill this up. If you'll notice on the tank you have a little dipstick. We're looking at the point of the coldest, so the bottom lot. Maximum we want to be at the bottom. And then when we've done that, we're then going to go and turn the steering wheel left and right, probably up to about 30 times, because the idea is you want to get air out the system. You'll see in the tank here, you'll see little bubbles of air. Once you've done it up to 30 times, we then turn the car on, because that then makes the pump come on, and for about a minute you'll then see more bubbles coming out. But basically we want to make sure that, as I say, this is filled up and all the air bubbles are out. Now, to do this, that we fill it up with Mercedes 236.3, I think it is, which is steering fluid. Now, I have seen people use the Pentazin CHF 11S, which is green. In fact, I use that on my CLK. But bearing in mind that this is a steering rack that's been reconditioned, so almost like new, I'm going to go with what Mercedes recommends, which is the yellow stuff, to 236.3. And I'm going to be using the Febby stuff here, 08972. So we're going to fill it up with this stuff. I'm going to put on the screen now all the details of this, but basically this meets Mercedes 236.3, which is what they specify should be in this car's gearbox. I'm sorry, steering rack. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling it up. They're all the bubbles we're getting the pump to get out now. So we'll keep turning the steering wheel and letting this get rid of all these bubbles for us. So as you can see now, the bubbles are all gone. Or the big bubbles we were seeing, which is circulating the oil now. So the air's all out, which is good news. tie rods are in on both sides, steering rack is in, and that's job done. To be fair, the car will probably need to go for a track-in. Yeah, it's probably out a little bit, but we tried to get as close as possible by counting the number of turns we did on the tie rods on these. So I don't think it'll be that much out. But yeah, its steering's all working. There's no leaks. That's a good thing. I've checked all the pipes, back and front and stuff, and yeah, no leaks whatsoever. So that's a good result. And pleased, very pleased to say, job done. Certainly wouldn't want to be doing this again. And it's certainly something you'd want to really seriously consider if you're thinking about doing it yourself, because it's not a good job at all. Oh well, guys, till next time in the next video. Yeah, hope you've enjoyed this one.